open it, it might be too fizzy
Ah.
and get all crazy. Is it true? I don't know. But yes, the false choice that Ben was given is not being honored. Sorry, Ben.
All right. Well, we are
Oh, this is not good.
streaming. You don't like
Um,
it?
Mighty. Um, I'm gonna give it a more of a chance. I know what I wanted it to taste like, and it's not that. So I have to learn to live with what it actually is.
Live with the choice that you've made.
Yeah, it has this
Um,
sort of strangely medicine-y kind of flavor to it, which is bizarre.
Paul, as we
Hmm.
record this, yesterday was Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was. We went. Okay, so first,
This is
and
your
I
first
hate to throw
Thanksgiving in
shade
Chicago.
here. Yeah, our plan was to go to Golden Corral, and Golden Corral, again, not to throw shade, wonderful institution, closed at 4,
Mm.
but had no indication that they were closing at 4 anywhere on their site.
Did
They
you
just had a
guys
"We are open
show
on
up at like
Thanksgiving."
3:45?
We showed up at 4,
Oh, yeah.
about
So then you
4.
had to pivot and find another plan.
Yes. And so what we ended up doing was we went to Applebee's, and Applebee's. In fact, this will be fun. Applebee's had a special menu, right? And you know how I talk about how I'm part of that group that um, plays alternate TTRPGs, like ones that aren't Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
They have a food channel on their Discord. And so I sent them a copy of the menu, and they sent me back little quips based off the menu. So
Clever
for
quips, I'm sure.
once, because we're having a 2 hour podcast extravaganza, I'm going to read you the quips that they did based on the menu, and it's going to be a little bit of a quiz. The idea, Ben, is I would like you to figure out the name of the product that they're making the joke off of.
And for the listeners just tuning in, we are not recording a 2-hour episode. We are just recording two episodes at once.
Yes. So you're gonna figure it out when it is only an hour, and you're gonna say, "Why is this a 2 hour?" It's not. There's gonna be another one, and we never know which we're gonna release first. We'll see. Sometimes it's a little trick on
Random
the
luck of the
listener.
draw.
So this one, first one's easy because they give it to you. Double crunch bone-in wings. Applebee's bad. Don't eat the bones. Which would of course be uh, double crunch bone-in wings.
And let me just say before we begin this game, I have never been to an Applebee's.
Okay. This one, I'll give you another one. This one, we're gonna be looking for the neighborhood nachos. Is the name of the food, and they say neighborhood nachos just for the table, please. So that's a little joke. We're not giving nachos to the whole neighborhood, which I like. Someone wrote, I thought Applebee's was supposed to be cheap. Dang. It's because the prices were a little expensive. Um, I believe it's
So
because we were
Thanksgiving
eating there on
surcharge.
Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, Bourbon Street, make that burger here. So Ben, the joke is Bourbon Street made that burger here. What is the name of the
Uh,
entree?
Applebee's famous Bourbon Street burger.
I believe that you're correct. Let's just see here. I'm going to go into entrees. Bourbon Street. Oh, you're close, Ben. It's the Bourbon Street Mushroom Swiss Burger.
Oh,
Let me also
I
say we aren't.
left off
Oh,
some
go ahead.
detail. I left off some
We
detail. That's
exactly.
I have
We
to be
aren't
more detailed.
sponsored by Applebee's, but if you're interested, this
If
is the
I
kind of
truly
content. we
If
can
I
get
truly
you.
wanted to rock this game, I'd open up the Applebee's menu.
But you don't have the Applebee's holiday menu, Ben. There might be a
Do
difference.
not have. I could probably find it if I wanted to put any effort into it whatsoever.
This is one that's fun from Jack Panic, famous TTRPG game designer, uh, or at least excellent. I don't know how famous Jack Panic is.
I'd never heard of them.
Sorry, Jack. Well, yes, that's true. I can't argue with that. Uh, Pepsi products. I barely know her. I'm not good at this game, you guys. So that one you don't. Okay. All right. I think this one's gonna work out. You're telling me a chicken tended to this platter?
It is a platter of Applebee's famous chicken tenders.
Let's see. It is
The chicken
the.
tender, garlic and onion, chicken tender, Applebee's platter tender,
It's just chicken tenders platter. So I think that worked.
chicken
Um,
tendered platter.
yeah. And hey, if I'm reading yours and I don't say your name, you know who you are, but I don't know exactly how to name you in this because I don't know safety wise versus the Discord versus real life, etc. Um, so let's see. Ask your server for availability. Gamer, that's the damn manager's job, which I thought was nice as well. We're almost done. Um, mozzarella sticks to what? Which I thought was
Applebee's
nice.
famous mozzarella sticks.
I personally think the queso and chips should check their privilege. Um, what do you think that one is, Ben?
Uh, Applebee's famous queso and chips got a bank loan before you did.
You're real close. You're real close. There's a specific uh-oh. Okay, we're still recording. Um, no, Ben, it's the white queso dip and chips. Uh, which
I
I
was on the
also
right track.
appreciated. Yeah, exactly. I think you win on a technicality on that one. And then someone said, "You're telling me I sugar dusted these donut dippers? I'm back, baby."
Applebee's famous sugar dusted donut dippers with sauce.
I don't think the with sauce is there, but Ben, you're really good. And then I wrote back to them all. I read these to my family, and my daughter said healing is possible, but I think it was unrelated. And then I wrote back, she's confirmed that she wasn't even listening to me. So I just got done reading all those to Jennifer and Betty, and then Betty just said, apropos of nothing, healing is possible.
We
Um,
can we can push through. We will survive.
so I'm gonna stop now with that, but thank you, Ben, for listening. So that's what we ended up doing. We went to Applebee's, um, and hey, I don't mind talking
Did
about being a
they
big spender on the podcast.
did they
Um,
have traditional Thanksgiving fare, or was it like did you get a hamburger and white
I got
queso?
an Impossible Burger.
An Impossible Burger.
Yeah, uh, or maybe I didn't. Who's to
Impossible to
say?
say.
Um, but I will say that it was in the end $130 some odd dollars. That's
For
with
just the
tax and tip
three
and
of you.
everything. Yeah.
Wow.
But
That's an
to be
expensive night out.
fair, we did tip generously,
Yeah, well, yeah.
uh, because I
It's
mean, come on.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
We
yeah,
tipped
that was
$100 to our server.
yeah, that would have been nice. We didn't, but would have been nice.
I enjoy telling the story of when you and me and Blair and Betty went out to eat at that 50s style diner outside of Edwardsville when we were out there. And the
Yes.
total bill came out to like less than $30.
Yeah. That
And
place.
You told me that like there's like an inflatable Trump statue out front of it
Oh,
now.
I don't think it's inflatable. I think that it is a
It's
solid
a permanent structure.
Trump statue.
They had
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get a permit to install it.
they did do it, and to their credit, when I saw it when we were driving past it recently, maybe even as we were leaving town for good to go to Chicago, um, I said, "Wow, can't believe they haven't taken that down yet." Turns out they were
Yep.
right, right to keep it
Yep.
up.
Well,
Uh, um,
they were correct
yeah, well, they were right.
of center.
Da da
Yeah.
da.
Do do do
Okay,
do.
so we have a couple of things to talk about, and Ben going to guess the news
Okay.
because I
Which will
don't
be a
know if
challenge because
you've been.
I've not really been paying attention to the news this week.
Well, even if you were even if you were being paying attention to the news, Ben, how's it happening? Um,
Keep it wrong.
we you would probably not get any of these. So I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons earlier.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons, kind of in the news. What
Dungeons and
pray
Dragons.
tell might be putting Dungeons and Dragons in the news? And here's a this is a new twist on Ben gonna guess the news. If we haven't done this already, you are allowed to ask me yes or no questions. I think you have in the past.
I have in the past. Does this have anything to do with the business practices of the parent company?
Um, yes, but
But
tangentially.
okay. Does this have something to do with something that happened to a customer, either directly or indirectly?
No,
Does this have something to do with the cost of the games or the books?
it could.
But
Well, you know what, Ben? I'm gonna back up and say it does sort of have something to do with the customer.
okay. Did were they bought by a company or were they sold to or did they buy other companies?
They did not, and they have not been sold. But it is interesting that you mentioned that because it's sort of related to why they're in the news.
Did they go bankrupt?
No,
Okay. Is the
they have.
business who owns D&D? Is it owned by Hasbro or something?
It is owned by Hasbro. Yes.
Hasbro, like Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah, Dungeons and
something like
Dragons is
that.
a property of Wizards of the Coast, as is Magic the Gathering. But
Right.
you're I'm gonna tell you
I'm on a
um
track.
it is about the possible sale
Is
of
about
the
the possible
company, but
of okay.
um but Hasbro has not said anything about selling the company.
Oh.
So what
Um
does that mean? It's about the possible sale of the company, but Hasbro hasn't said anything about selling the company. What would that mean? What could that what could that be?
Another company has announced that they were going to buy Dungeons and Dragons, and Hasbro has to be like, "What?"
Okay, and so here's the thing. Another company, no.
Another
But
person,
yeah.
a person is going to
And
buy
and they
Dungeons
haven't
and Dragons.
they haven't they haven't said that they definitely were going to, but
Has Elon Musk threatened to buy D&D because he feels
Ben,
slighted?
what a wonderful guess. Elon Musk was earlier angry because so one of the things that Wizards of the Coast was talking about doing was that they were going to put out a reissue of some of the earlier D&D books,
Okay.
but that there's some stuff in early Dungeons and Dragons that some people find distasteful or not necessarily great. Are you familiar with the
Like all the
phrase or
misogyny and
the
sexism.
right the term bioessentialism? Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
Bioessentialism is basically the idea that just like there are breeds of dogs and some breeds of dogs are good at some things and not others,
Yeah.
that some types of people are better at things than other types of
Like
people.
a male wizard has more power than a female wizard, things like that.
Um, Sort of like that, yeah. Like famously, a female character, there was a strength cap, and I believe it was that a female character couldn't be above strength 16, and a male could achieve 18, like that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Yeah.
all the things about, well, orcs are just evil, and that's all there is to it. Um, Certain races are evil, certain races are good, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's something that they've been taken out. So the idea was that when these reissues were going to happen, um, some of that wording might have been changed. That was the plan, was they were going to change that, and that was something Elon Musk said was not cool.
Yeah.
And then later on,
Dungeons and Dragons can't go woke on my watch.
maybe not related, but who knows? He mentioned that he might actually purchase Hasbro so that he would have the rights to Dungeons and Dragons. That was something that he was perhaps talking about doing. There was a political cartoon that
Twitter
had
turned
like
out so well.
Tesla, and then Twitter, and like it's Elon Musk dressed as the Grim Reaper, and there's blood coming out from underneath the door of those
Jesus.
two, and he's knocking on the Wizards of the Coast door,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's an edit of a meme of sorts, but that's the basic thing. Is that, of course, a lot of the people would expect that the folks on the TTRPG, the indie TTRPG thing might be like, all right, sure, why not kill D&D? But they recognize that that would be bad for the rest of the hobby as well, probably. So they're not like
And
super into it.
even though D&D is not the only TTRGB out there, if Wizards of the Coast does get sold and Dungeons and Dragons goes away, D&D will live on. D&D as a thing will live on. I don't see fans throwing away their existing books, you know.
Yeah, well, there could be a thing that would. Oh, and one of the other things was that he mused that he might do AI with it. Now, here's the thing: Wizards of the Coast
I'm
have
gonna
already said the
I'm
same
gonna
thing,
do an AI.
that they're going to be working to incorporate more AI into their stuff. So who knows? But that's number one.
Oh, there's more.
Um,
Excellent, bring it.
yeah. So something is happening in the UK. Um, so we're just talking about D&D, right?
Oh, this is still
Which,
D&D related?
well, no, but I'm making a thread because it's fun and I just thought of it. Um, TTRPG, it's known as a hobby, right? People that play it are sometimes known as hobbyists, right?
Yeah.
What did the U.S. Pentagon indicate could be the work of hobbyists in the UK?
Stonehenge.
No, that is not the answer.
Is it something to do with hacking?
No, it does not have to do with hacking.
Is it something that is known before as a mystery? Like, did we see this? I mean, like, how did that happen in the U.S. with like the hobbyists, like crop circles? Did somebody like
Yeah,
are
very similar to that.
are the UAPs just like dudes flying their drones at night?
Okay, you're really getting there. Um, so they did not say that it was hobbyists, but when pressed, they said it might be hobbyists.
Okay. In regards to sightings of UAPs?
Sightings of what are being referred to as drones,
Yeah.
outside of U.S. bases in the UK.
Okay. Somebody's getting a little bit too close
UK.
to the airspace.
It's a dumb joke, but so there's a guy from the Pentagon. It was about 2 minutes at the end of a longer speech, right?
Yeah.
And they said, what are these things? And they said, we don't know. And then they asked if they were, the basic impression then after that was, well, if you don't know what these are, why aren't you engaging with them? And he said that he wasn't going to get into what sort of engagement there was. And they said, what about shooting them down? And they said that they weren't, that they were just observing them.
They're
They
not
haven't
posing a
been,
threat.
yeah. Well, the implication is that they're not posing a threat. And
Yeah.
then they said, well, are these from our adversaries? And they said, we don't know. And they said, so they could just be hobbyists. Oh, because he said there's been an uptick in drone activity all over the world, and they asked if it could be hobbyists. And he said it could be
Yeah.
hobbyists. Uh, and then so someone said, hobbyists, nothing to see here, folks. So based on that, what video and photo, or what city were there some videos and photos that were posted in conjunction with one another that made the New York Post uh,
The New York
do an
Post.
article on it?
I don't know the answer to this, but I did see a photo that was posted. Can't remember what city it was, but it was a blue orb on an airport runway. Is this something?
Ah,
Is this
no, that was
connected?
in the UK. The blue
Okay.
orb on the airport runway, which is its own thing, and I don't remember where in the UK it was. I should know, but I don't. But in that, again, once again, photos and then video posted together as though they were part of a package. But some people are claiming that what was in the photo and what was in the video may have been two separate things.
Oh,
And this is very similar to what I was alluding to as well. Uh, but it's not the UK one. So the UK one, there's there's an orb that they say is on a runway, right?
yeah.
And the story is that they saw the orb on the runway. A vehicle came to confront it, and then the orb took off into the air. And what they have is they have a picture of the orb on the runway. They have a picture of a sphere in the air, but they don't have the transition from when it was on the ground to when it was in the air, which everyone is saying, well, that would be the thing that we would
Yeah.
want to see.
Which is
But
interesting because, like, if it feels like if something like that had happened at a major airport, which disrupted travel, we'd hear more about it than from the New York Post.
well, the New York Post wasn't. I mean, this wasn't that one. This is a different one.
Okay.
That one, by the way,
How many
also
were there?
apparently happened in June. I want to say it was Manchester. I don't know. But it was in Great Britain.
Gotcha.
Famously, we don't look stuff up on this podcast.
But yet
Even
there's
though we
another
have
one of photos and a
recently.
video
Yes.
of something
What
else.
city? What city might it have been? And you can ask
Uh,
questions.
the story was in the New York Post,
The story was in the New York Post.
and
It
this
wasn't
so
where
this
these things were first posted. The New
this
York
is in
Post did a story on the Post,
but
if
it's
that makes sense.
city in the U.S., the
Yes,
continental U.S.
it is a city in the continental U.S.
All right. Is it on the eastern part of the country? In the eastern part of the
It
country.
is. It is in the eastern part of the country.
All right. It is on, is it on the coast somewhere along the coast?
Mm,
And by that I don't mean like on the ocean. Like is it like, New York City, Boston, Miami, DC, one of those
oh
cities.
yeah, yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
All right. Was it one of those cities
I
I just
tried not
listed
to
off?
get. I tried not to have my face. You have said it. I tried not to like have my face register which one it was.
Is it Boston? Did this happen in Boston?
It is not Boston.
Was it Miami?
It was not Miami.
All
No,
right.
you
So
had
Washington
you said
D.C.
Miami already? Yeah, okay.
I did say
Yes,
Miami.
it was Washington D.C.
Okay.
And so why would it be interesting? Why would it be interesting if it were Washington D.C.? What might pique someone's interest
Well, we
if there
have.
was some sort of UAP activity in Washington D.C.?
Well, that's the seat of the federal government.
Yeah, what do we sometimes call it? It's the
What do we
U.S.
some
what?
the U.S. Capitol,
Right. Is there any sort of a building?
the Capitol
Uh,
building, the
yes. Okay.
Pentagon.
So the Capitol building.
Yeah.
There were lights above the Capitol building, video of lights above the Capitol building, and then a photograph of lights above the Capitol building. And some people said that it was blank, and other people said it was blank. And it turns out maybe they were both right. How could that be?
Uh, does this have anything to do with drones? Some people said they were drones. Other people
Okay,
said they were
I'll get. Some people said it
unknown
was.
flying objects, and technically both are
So,
correct.
you're close, but no. Some people did say they were drones, and some people said they were UAPs. But I'll get to those two in a second. We are talking about the most likely thing that it would be.
Swamp gas.
Mm, no, Ben.
Uh,
For a really long time, I didn't realize that the swamp gas thing. I thought the swamp gas really did mean that there was a cloud of gas, but what the actual thing was is that well, swamp gas is filtering lights in such a way to make it look weird.
yeah.
But
So I'm trying to figure out what some people think these lights were.
yeah, yeah,
And it do they think
and
it's
you don't even
extraterrestrial in
have to
nature or
guess.
is it terrestrial in
Oh
nature?
no, these are so what? I'll put it this way. Um, there are always these are aliens people,
Yeah,
right? Well these are aliens, and normally what happens is that the people then come in and debunk, right?
right.
And they say, oh these weren't aliens, these were UAPs. I mean, no,
Reflections
sorry,
of
these
like
weren't aliens, these were drones,
yeah.
etc. In this case, there was one camp that said it was one thing, one camp that said it was another. They couldn't be both at the same time, but it turns out that maybe they were. And how
Oh,
is it possible? So I'll just tell you, Ben, because I don't
you'll
want
just
to.
tell me
You,
because
I, ladies and gentlemen who are not watching the feed, I try to string Ben along as long as possible, and then eventually I'll see something in his face that I'm like, maybe this is taking too long. So okay, so there was Ben. What you drinking? What is that?
why this is a cucumber melon water from Simple Truth.
Ah, and how
Not a
is it?
sponsor of today's show, but it is quite tasty.
It didn't make you go, oh, that's no good. Which
You're
is
right. I
yeah.
already knew that I liked it.
So so basically, I feel I want to apologize to the people at Mighty Pop. It's growing on me now that I'm getting used to it. So, um, some people were saying, "Oh, well, those are just glares from the streetlights below,
Right.
right?"
Yeah.
And another person said, "Well, those are just planes waiting to land at the is it Reagan Airport? I forget what the name of the
Yeah.
airport is.
There's
Those are just
Reagan. There's also
planes.
Dulles.
Those are just planes waiting to land at Reagan Airport." And uh, thinking that I was, being skeptical in the good way, and it's like, okay, look, it can't be both reflections and planes landing.
It's reflections of the
Can't be
planes
it.
landing.
No, that wasn't it either. Because I'll be even more specific. They're like, these are just reflections of the street lamps below the Capitol building.
Right.
And other people were like, these are simply planes. There's a lot of traffic happening. This is on like the 25th. The video is
Yeah.
from the 25th. Some people said, I haven't found the correct date timestamps. No one has said for sure. Because some people said it was Thanksgiving, other people said it was the 25th. But in both cases, it would still be the same way. Why might there be lights above the Capitol if the lights were being taken while a bunch of planes were waiting to land because it's a busy travel day, right? That's the
Sure.
idea. But then other people are like, "Oh, but these are reflections from the street lamps below, and you've just cropped the street lamps out." And the thing that I finally figured out, and I want to say that it isn't just on these. I'll get to my rant in just a second, but the people who said that they were street lamps were talking about the photograph of the incident. The people that said that they were planes landing were talking about the video of the incident. And what it could be is that in the photo, there are street lamps that have a lens flare above the Capitol building. And in the video, we're watching planes land. So it is possible that it's both one in the video, one on the photo. But
Are
everyone is in
these
the same thread talking about
are
it
the
as one
photo and the
set.
video all taken from the same point of view?
They are not. No. Which, again, leads me to believe, and this is actually something, Ben, you as a videographer would probably, know this already. If you got two shots of purportedly the same thing, they might be from two different cameras. They might be in two totally different locations, even one being like a studio, one being outside. You don't know. There's no way to tell. But I do have a gripe, and this is where I am going to air it. Um, my gripe is basically this. So you have somebody who posts a video. Or they post a video and they say, or yeah, somebody posts a video and they say, "Look, I've captured a UFO on tape." And someone says, "That's not a UFO. This is CGI. You can totally see the matte lines
Right.
of where you've put it on here." And another person says, "This isn't CGI. This is obviously a spotlight reflecting off of the clouds. It's obvious." And then the third person says, "This can't be aliens. What you're looking at is simply a reflection from the headlights of a car behind you that's reflecting off of the windshield." What is my gripe? My gripe is that, okay, it can't be all three of those things if we're talking about one video clip, right? It can't be CGI and reflection of the cars behind you, right? It has to be one or the other. And these folks who say this never like duke it out to say which thing they're looking at. And it drives me nuts because,
Is this
me,
like a comment section on a news
yeah,
site that
this
they're
is on
arguing
this is
on?
on Reddit.
It's on Reddit. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody posts a thing and then everybody else talks about,
Yeah.
oh, they're like, "Look, I think, disclosure's coming. Here's the video." And somebody says, that is not a UAP. It's obviously CGI. And somebody else says, the same thing. It's not. It's obviously a reflection. But the CGI guy and the reflection guy never argue with each other, and that's what I want to see.
You want to
Because
see you want to see ethical debate on Reddit?
yes, because it exists. It's called "What is this thing?" What is this thing? What is this movie, etc. All of those play really well to each other, with each other. where the person says, "Oh, that's a handsaw," and you can tell because
of the
it's got this
pixels.
manufacturer number or whatever. Like everyone comes to an agreement, and finally the person, the OP, says solved. I think that's how these things should be. What is this thing in the sky? I saw this thing, and somebody says, "Well, it's obviously reflections of cars behind you. Take a look. This is what this looks like, right?" And then somebody else says, "Well, this is obviously CGI."
In a
Okay,
separate top level comment. They don't comment
right,
in. Yeah.
right, exactly. And they both have 70 upvotes, and it's like I personally can't take it. I need to know which of, like, just saying it's definitely this or it's definitely that. If they were to come in and say, I've done a lot of video editing in my time. I think this is CGI. This is why I think it's CGI, and leave it at that. Like, that would be great, right? Because that can exist alongside, um, another thing that says, I've been a cop for a long time. Sometimes lights reflect on my windshield and creep me out, but it's just lights being reflected. That's what I think this is. If they just both posted that, I'd be fine and we'd be good, and I wouldn't even complain about this. But it's always, this obviously isn't aliens. This is
Yeah.
CGI. They're sure of themselves. And the fact that these two people are sure of themselves, but they both can't be right, drives me insane. Drives me crazy.
I'm sorry that you have such a close emotional connection to Reddit comments.
It's not just Reddit comments, Ben. It's it's when something impossible happens and I can't deal with it. Have I told you about the shoe rack yet? Have we talked
The
about it?
shoe rack?
Yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned the impossible shoe rack to you.
No. I'm assuming this is a shoe rack that you bought that you need to assemble, and for some
It
reason, it cannot be assembled.
so I bought a shoe rack and I am taking the pieces out to assemble it. And before I start assembling it, I'm going to go and use the restroom, right? So I'm unpacking all the different things. And it's basically, it's a 10 space shoe rack, two levels that you then snap together, if that makes sense. Level one, level two, snap together.
Yeah.
And the way that the shoe rack works is that you have, your your legs, if you will, and then metal rods that run in between the two legs, and then these sort of cloth, steps, if you will, or saddles, if you will, that go over the rods. Does that make sense?
And the saddles are what you put the shoes in.
Then you put the shoes in the saddles,
Yeah.
right?
So is this something? So it's on the it sits on the ground.
Sits on the ground. It's like a little tower
Yeah.
or a bookshelf. Like imagine this shelf behind me, right? But they're tilted a little bit. The shelves are tilted a little bit, and there are iron bars that go from one leg to the other,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a burlap saddle that kind of fits over
Yeah.
the bars, and you put the shoes in the saddle.
Right.
So I've unpacked the two little leg halves. All the rods come bundled together. Take that out, and then there's a second bundle of rods and the burlap steps or saddlebags, which come in a second bundle. Put that down. I take away all the paper, put all the paper in the box, and then I go use the restroom. Come back, and the saddles are gone. The burlap saddles are gone. And I said, Jennifer, did you take these? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, maybe I put them in the box with the paper on accident. So I take them out of the box, the paper out of the box. Nothing in there. and I walk through. I take the assembly instructions, and I look underneath them. There's nothing there. I walk back to the bathroom. Maybe I set them down. Maybe I took them with me to the bathroom, set them down. They're not there.
And it's only the burlap sacks that are missing.
The saddles are the only thing that's missing. And I went from here to the bathroom. The only thing in between there and the bathroom are these cardboard boxes that I walked by. And I'm like, okay, well maybe I put them in the cardboard boxes. I look, no. There's a foam thing that, and this at this point, right? I'm looking under things that I know I didn't lift up and put the burlap sacks. So I'm looking, and Jennifer and I have this little joke about the fairies. Oh well, the fairies took it, right? We even at one point in time had Jennifer and me called in to speak to someone at the school because Betty suggested that the fairies had taken her homework. And they're like, "Are you telling her that there are fairies?" And we're like, "Well, it's a thing we say."
It's
Um,
a thing that was supposed to only stay at home.
and I'm like, "Okay, well, this is the thing where the fairies took him." And Jennifer's like, "Yeah, you're gonna find him, right?" And so she's like, "You're gonna find him when you stop looking for him. That's when they're gonna show up."
Yeah.
And so still, I try to busy myself doing other stuff. She's like, "You don't have to put these together today." I'm like, "Well, I can't without the saddles." And she's like, "I know. I'm just saying you don't have to do it today. Just take your mind off it and watch some TV and everything." Before I go to bed, I still look and I like open up the boxes, I move everything, can't find them. Go to bed, wake up, next morning, still looking, can't find them. Have, other chores that I do. I don't think I'm working. I think that it's like it's start. I think that this is now Saturday. I think I was starting the project Friday night. Still can't find them. Still can't find them. Eventually, and we talk about like metaphysical issues with this, right? Like they can't just have disappeared. Impossible,
And
right?
Betty was nowhere to be found.
Betty wasn't there. Jennifer didn't touch them. I didn't go upstairs. I know that I just walked from point A to point B. Um, and we talk about, okay, all other improbable, ideas. Maybe when I set them down through time. Like I set them down in the place that I thought that I put them down at, but I put them down forward in time. That's the reason I can't find them. When we get to the point of time where I remember putting them down, then they'll be there, right? I just can't access them until when they arrive in the future.
And it's nothing
And so,
Edward would have grabbed while you
right,
were in the
well, and this is,
bathroom.
I mean, I've been thinking about it, right? Edward does pick up socks, all that, but
Yeah.
these were, imagine 10 burlap saddlebags. That's pretty big, right?
Like each one is shoe size, right?
Yeah, and so well, each one is
For like
actually,
two.
pretty, yeah, two shoe sizes, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Jennifer about, metaphysics and quantum mechanics and how eventually something's got to happen, but I don't know how, maybe our memories are going to change and we're going to remember, oh yeah, this is what I did with them. And they're going to be somewhere, something's going to happen because right now both of us feel like it's impossible. And then I sat down, I'm looking at the box. There's a photograph on the box of the assembled shelves with shoes on them. And the assembled shelves with shoes on them do not have any burlap saddles. They're just two black bars with the shoes sitting on top of them. And so I open up the instructions and I look in the instructions. I look at all the parts that are listed. The burlap saddlebags are not listed as a part. And so the best way I can describe it, I enter reality fully where this shoe tower never came with burlap saddlebags. And my memory of taking them out and putting them somewhere becomes a false memory because there's no way I could have done it because the shoe rack never came with them. And now the shoe rack is assembled, we're using it, and the fact that there are just two black bars and no saddlebags at all has not made them unuseful. They work fine. The shoe rack works as expected. So I know this sounds crazy, but whenever people talk about like, aliens, UAPs, that sort of stuff, nothing to me was as bizarre or freaky as these saddlebags suddenly not existing. A very mundane thing that doesn't affect anyone except for me and, Jennifer having to listen to me talk about it.
and, and to watch you turn over the house to try to find something that does not exist.
Yeah. And so today, we Jennifer's making this food, and she is supposed to have this ginger that she bought. She's going to use it, and she's like, "I can't find the ginger anywhere." And I'm like, "Ah ha ha, ah!" I was emptying the bags of groceries, and I remembered that you had the ginger in there, and I was like, "I bet you she's not going to know where the ginger is, so I'm going to put it in the same drawer with the lemons and the garlic." And that way I'll know where it is. And so I went there very confidently, wasn't in there. And so we had to go out and buy new ginger, even though we both knew that there was ginger that we had purchased. And
Like a
Jennifer
clove of
says,
ginger.
"Yeah, go, get the bags. We're gonna go and buy new ginger." And we have grocery bags. You always forget the grocery bags. We have so all of our grocery bags are stuffed into this one big grocery bag.
Yeah.
And we have the garage now. If I told you about the garage now opens,
Yeah, you can put the car in there.
we can park the car in there. It's pretty awesome. Get in the car, we drive, and we're going to this grocery store that we think might have ginger because it's one of the ones that we think is going to be open. And we stop and we see, oh look, it's the Southland Health Food Store or whatever it's called, something like that, which has stuff that we wanted to get in it, drinks and things like that. So we stopped there, and I'm like, I bet you they have ginger. And so we get the ginger from there. So we're checking out. Jennifer had just grabbed one of the bags at random from the big Sacco bags. And as we're there, Jennifer says, "Look what I found.
The
Inside that bag
ginger.
was another stick of ginger.
Yeah.
The one that I thought I put in the refrigerator. Out of all the bags that she chose, she picked the one that had the ginger that I had forgotten about."
Because it was on the top.
Yeah. Now, I was like, "That's crazy." And then, we purchase our stuff, we leave. And as I was leaving, I was like, "Do you realize that as far as that cashier was concerned, we might have been pulling the old look what I found in the bag trick?"
Yeah.
Um, which reminded me of the Glim Dropper, which is a
The
con.
the glim dropper?
Yeah, I don't remember the con exactly. I was introduced to it. There's a comedian, Andy Daly, who said something about it on Comedy Bang Bang, Scott Ackerman's comedy podcast.
Yeah.
That Reggie Watts, famously, friend of the show, Reggie Watts. He's never been on it, but we know him, and he's cool. So he looks at he being the rube, right? Looks at two guys, right? One guy has lost his glass eye, and another guy finds it and says, "Hey, I'll give this back to you, but how much is it worth for you?" And the guy's like, "Oh, come on, man,
Yeah.
it's my glass eye." He goes, "I'll give it to you. I'll give it back to you for $500." And he's like, "Well, I don't have $500 on me." He's like, "Well, hey, I'm not going anywhere." So the guy leaves, and then another guy runs in and says, "Harrison, your wife's gonna have her baby. You got to come to the hospital quick." He's like, "Hey, I got this deal going with this other guy." Uh, and he's like, "Well, you can't wait. Your wife's gonna kill you if she has a baby without you." So he says, "Okay, hey pal, do me a favor. You hang on to this eye, and you get the money from him, and I'll split it with you." And the guy's like, and depending on how you are, he might be like, "Oh, you're a little bit too eager or whatever." He says, "I'll tell you what, just give me 25 bucks so that I know that you're, legit, and then we'll split the money afterwards." And the idea is that most cons, you're playing off the idea that the rube thinks that he's smart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he'll give you the 25 bucks for the eye, thinking, "Ha ha ha, I'm going to get the 500 bucks later on."
Yeah.
And then they leave, and of course, you never see any of the guys
Right.
ever again. And they made 25 bucks off of a piece of glass that's worth like, you know, three or whatever. I don't know exactly how that works. I don't even know if that's the right con. I might have just made it all up on my
Came up
own,
with a brand new con that's going to be sweeping the nation. I
trying to remember what the con actually was. So,
I was Catherine will like this story because she listens to the show now, and
hello, Catherine.
I was at the QFC buying something, and I'm at the self checkout because I only go to the self checkout because I'm an employee of QFC, and um
I'm nodding.
and
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
checking
you
out.
are.
Catherine comes up because she's gonna buy stuff too, and then she comes up to me. She's like, "Did you buy garbage bags?" Because Annex needed garbage bags at the time, and I'm like, "No, I forgot." And then she um has a shopping bag, not like a paper bag, but like a canvas bag, and she starts handing me stuff, and she's like, "Can you take these to the theater? I'm gonna go buy more more garbage bags." And so I start putting them in my bag, and I'm like, "Wait, did you pay for these?" Thinking like, I need to pay for them or I need to see the receipt. And she says, "No, I got them at a different store." It was like, and it wasn't
Oh,
stuff that you would buy. It wasn't like bananas or apples or something. It was like tape, like painter's tape and stuff.
yeah,
That QFC might sell, but they don't.
probably don't.
But
Yeah,
so she hands me like five or six items, and I just put them in my canvas bag because I'm all I'm like still checking out
yeah,
and bagging stuff, and then she goes away to buy more garbage bags for the theater, and I'm thinking this totally looks like she just came up and put stolen merchandise in my bag,
yeah,
and gave it to me, and I put it in my bag. And as I'm walking out, I finish my transaction. As I'm walking out, I walk past the two people who are working there because they have like
yeah,
employees who are there to help people. And I hear one of the guys say, "The perfect crime." Now, chances are he wasn't talking about watching what I
yeah,
did and commenting on what I did. He might have been having a conversation with this fellow with his colleague, and I just happened to hear a perfect crime, and like they didn't stop me. Like I am in there almost every day, sometimes twice a day. Chances are they recognize me as a regular customer who wouldn't try to like pull something over on them.
right.
But I couldn't help but think as I walked away. Did those guys think that I just stole a bunch of stuff from the QFC and they let me get away with it?
And they just said the perfect crime instead of,
So,
this is one of those things where I think you and I have talked about this before. Back when we were living in Seattle, it wasn't Craigslist. It was like the help or the misconnections or whatever in like the stranger.
Yeah,
There was a thing where people would say, "Hey, I'm looking for a band. I'm a drummer and I'm looking for a band. I'm a
yeah.
bass player. I'm looking for a band." And what you and I had decided that we would do at some point in time was just put together a band by introducing all the people that wrote saying they were looking for a band together.
Yeah.
The reason I mention this, there are in public freakout and stuff like that on Reddit, there are these people who are shoplifting who just get a grocery cart, put a whole bunch of stuff in, and then just leave. And people try to stop them, and there are fights and things like that. Likewise, there's another thing where it's like a Dollar General store or something like that, where two employees are falling asleep because, like, behind the register, they're falling asleep because of drugs or whatever.
Oh.
And I'm like, why can't these two groups of people get together? They can put in all the groceries in the cart, leave without getting hassled. Those folks are asleep. Everybody's fine.
Nobody wants to steal from the Dollar General, I suppose.
Nobody wants to steal from the Dollar if it is the Dollar General. And Dollar General, I'm sorry if I'm defaming your company. Um, I believe it might have been at the Dollar General. I think it might have been. Um, I
Dollar
think the
General
person who
and Dollar
posted it,
Tree are two different companies, yet
yes,
sometimes they share a building.
interesting. I did not know
Yeah.
that.
I on my road trip, I saw a Dollar General Dollar Tree combo store, like one of those KFC Burger Kings you sometimes find.
So, speaking about all of that, Ben, I'm going to talk to you next time, or maybe I did talk to you previously. We'll see. Luck of the draw, which one goes first. But this is the end of this half of the episode twofer that we're doing. So it's a full episode, but there's going to be another one that we're going
Yeah.
to hear later.
That
How's it
we're
happening? Keep it
r-
wrong.
recording now, and it'll air whenever I feel like it.
Exactly. It's
Uh,
all up to Ben,
Keep
ladies and
it
gentlemen.
wrong, Paul.
Yep.
How's it happen? I'll talk to you next week. And by
Talk to
next week,
you.
I mean just a couple seconds.
Yep.
You want to do the clap test just so I have a sync point
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
all right, you count it
We're
off.
gonna. I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1, clap. Okay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Huh.
Now for me, that was spot on.
Awesome. You're a little bit behind me. Oh, this isn't gonna help, Ben. We're gonna have to do it again. We're gonna do 3, 2, 1, clap, and then not say anything for like we're-
Oh, right, to
a minute
isolate
afterwards.
the
Yeah.
okay, let's
And then we'll
we're still
start
in the
over.
first we're still in the first episode, and the second
Okay.
episode starts after we clap, a couple beats after we
Okay.
clap.
Yep. 3, 2, 1.
Paul Goody.
Ben Lawrence, you are a few seconds behind me, but I think we're going to be okay. Um, I don't even know if it's seconds. It might be milliseconds, nanoseconds, even. We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, it's
So
better than it has been in the past.
here's an interesting thing. Crime,
Down
Ben.
across the nation,
Uh, and yet,
instances of violent crime.
um, we've noticed something. So we moved to the south side of Chicago. And people, when we moved to the south side of Chicago, said, South side of Chicago, are you sure? It's very violent down there. Now,
Yeah,
maybe so.
it's
In
people
fact, I have a
fighting over the
story
White
about it.
Sox.
Uh, I have a story about it in a little bit. But Jennifer said that ever since we moved here, which is, we're almost going to be at 2 months, there has been a shooting every single night. Uh, just on the news,
Wait,
there's a
that you've
report.
heard or like
No,
that
no.
you've read about?
There's been a report of
Yeah,
shooting.
yeah, yeah,
We
okay.
haven't heard. You know how people say gunfire or fireworks? Which one is it? You
Yeah,
know that kind of thing. We heard fireworks, and the reason I think it was fireworks is this: it was the Day of the Dead when
yeah.
we heard it. So maybe, but probably
Dia
not.
de los Muertos.
So, so that was the interesting thing that most of it has actually been north. Like there was a guy who was mugged on
The
the Red Line recently.
affluent neighborhoods. Oh, really?
So he was, yeah, the Red Line that we took, right?
The red line
But
also, I was looking at the map, it goes to the northern neighborhoods. It's a
this is what I
solid
was going to
north-south
say.
arterial.
The guy who was mugged on the Red Line was mugged north of where we took it.
Yeah, north of the loop.
Yeah, north of the loop. So, you know, obviously, and my OCD training will tell me we don't know what's going to happen. There's no way to say. But it is interesting um, that because there's, I don't know, like this guy wrote in and said, "Did I ever tell you the funny little gang thing?"
The funny little gang thing.
No, no, I guess
A
not. So
random houseboat.
somebody was like, I want to move to Chicago, but I'm scared because I've heard how violent it is over there, and a lot of people get shot. And somebody wrote, right, most of the shootings are gang related.
Right.
Now, do keep in mind, the minute you move to Chicago, people
You
are
become
going to
part of a
try to get
gang.
you to join their gang.
Yeah.
And so when you move to Chicago, you need to, anytime anyone approaches you, you need to say, are you trying to get me to join your gang? And don't worry, you'll make friends right away. Um, so I thought that was funny. But um, Jennifer then said, "Oh, there was actually a shooting that happened, and it happened kind of across the street from where we normally buy our groceries. But this was the story that she told me. So there's a guy
I can still hear
wor-
you and speak to you.
working.
I'm refreshing my
Yep,
drink.
there's a guy who's working at like a fast food restaurant, and there are two guys who are like messing with him throughout his shift.
Yeah.
And he eventually does that thing where you're like, I don't need this. I don't need this job, and he takes off his apron or uniform or whatever, throws it down, walks into the back. And the thing that they uh didn't realize was that he went to the back, walked out that back door, went around the building, walked in through the door where the customers walked through, and shot them both.
Yeah.
And being the type of person that I am, as you know, Ben, I my lack of empathy is normally not entirely apparent. Oftentimes I can do things to make people feel as though I'm sympathetic, but sometimes something will happen to my brain where I'm
Tend to
like,
be human.
where I'm not exactly human. He
Yeah.
walked around, and the thing that I thought was, when he came in, I bet you both those guys went, where have I seen that guy before?
Because he's not
Because
wearing his uniform.
exactly, you don't know. I really think he walked in, and they weren't expecting to see him through those doors.
Right.
So anyway, the point is, I am going to,
The point is, don't mess with
uh,
customer service workers.
yeah, it's true. I'm gonna be going to work uh, related activities. So I'm gonna be leaving Chicago on Sunday, the December 1st, returning on Thursday the 5th, I believe, or the 4th, I guess. Wait. Sunday,
Thursday.
no, Thursday the 5th. Yeah. I'm leaving Sunday the 1st. Thursday is the
Yeah,
fourth day of the week, if you think of the first
Thursday
day of
is
the
the
week as a
fifth.
Monday, but it's
Yeah.
really the fifth day. So coming back Thursday the 5th. Leave Sunday. Um, the train that I'm getting on is at 7:15 in the
In the
morning.
AM.
Yeah. So I'm going to be leaving my house probably at 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, you're
So
taking like an
that's going to
Amtrak
be
train
pretty early.
someplace. Yeah.
What's that?
It's so
Yeah.
it's an Amtrak or
Yeah.
a commuter
So I'm
train,
going
not
to
just
Union
the.
Station.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because it's going to be like 4 hours to where I'm going. Uh, and then on my way back, I'm not going to get in until midnight. So I've got two kind of things that I'm bouncing around in my head as far as worries go. The first one is that on December 1st, when I'm taking the train, it's going to be like 19 degrees. My walk from here to the red line. Now you've been with me on that walk. It's not that far.
No,
It
but
is going to be
when it's
very
19
cold.
degrees and there's probably a wind chill that makes it feel less than that,
Yeah.
it can be a hike.
Now, Ben, describe if you will what I'm wearing at the moment.
Why, Paul, you're wearing a black tank top and suspenders.
That's right, and pants. Although
Well, I
you'll
can't
have
see
to
the
take my
pants,
word
so I have
for
to
it.
take your word
Yeah.
on it. Yeah.
Um. But so this is how I've been walking around the house and outside when I go to like get the mail or whatever and all that.
Yeah.
Um. So at least for short periods of time, I don't need to bundle up, even though it's uh pretty cold. So I'm not going to wear my. I bought a pair of snow pants, but I'm not going to wear my snow pants because I'm going to be traveling,
You don't
right?
want to look silly on the train.
Well, it's not that I don't mind looking silly on the train. We'll get to that in a second. But I am interested in not looking like I'm traveling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to look like I'm a tourist. So what I am going to be this is my suitcase that I'm taking. I'm going to be gone for 5 days. I'm going to be carrying this.
Can you fit 5 changes of clothes into that?
Well, I can if I'm not wearing snow pants. So, basically, I'm going to be wearing, you know, I'm going to be wearing the suspenders with pants, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to have another pair of suspenders and pants packed. I'm going to have a tracksuit packed, and between that, I'm going to have a bunch of these tank tops, and I'm going to have two overshirts. I'm not going to have five new outfits of clothes, but I am going to have five new things to wear, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, like I am going to be wearing different things because, and this is the other piece, we are having themes at work for different days,
This is the
and one
retreat
of it is
or the meetup that you
it's a
told me you're going to
it's
that
it's
they
it's a
didn't
retreat
have.
type of thing.
Yeah, they didn't have like a reimbursement code for the train tickets. Is this the
Hey,
same
hey,
thing?
hey, 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 Ben, we don't talk about work here.
You brought
I know
that
it
up.
sounds like we're talking about work. Um,
You said it
and
first. Otherwise,
no,
how would
but
I
about
know?
reimbursement codes and things like that. The company is very good at making sure that I am well taken care of, and I love the company, Ben.
They had to come
I
up
can't
with a reimbursement code for the train.
I can't talk about. See, the problem is that that's a little too much of identification. Uh, Not really, but maybe.
Think you're
Um,
wrong.
so I think you're wrong, and that's how I like it, Ben. That's how we keep it. It is a um, so So I can talk to you after the podcast about the ins and outs of all of that on our Patreon feed, which we don't have, and if we do have it, there's a problem. So at this point in time, we don't have one, but if we do have it, problem. Um, One of my coworkers has told me that for the dress like your favorite holiday character, they have a Grinch costume that I can wear.
And you don't think that's more of an identification for the company than anyway? Um, so they
What?
mu- they
What? My
they
company has
must
a Grinch costume I can fit. There's a
they
coworker that has a Grinch
no
costume. How
that you're
does that
having
identify?
dress like a holiday
Oh,
day
oh
at your
wait.
retreat.
Oh wait. There's a themed retreat. That could be anyone. Uh, are you kidding? Um, no, but yeah, I'm sorry, Ben.
So
I feel like
this
there's a tension here that I want to dissolve. I want to. I'm sorry, Ben. It's like if I hadn't made a big deal about it, it wouldn't be a big deal. I'm realizing that that's a problem on my side of the fence, not on yours, Ben. I want to let you know. I'm sorry, you were saying that. I interrupted you.
I was just assuming that this coworker lives within driving distance of the retreat location, so they can
Yes,
pack
that
a
is
Grinch
correct.
costume in their car
But can you guess, Ben?
because they don't
Knowing
let you fly
knowing
with
my
those.
right, exactly. Knowing my problem, how I think the problem du jour that I sometimes run into. What am I worried about now with the Grinch costume? I'm
I
worried that they're going to say that I can keep it because I want to keep it, but how on earth would I? So
well, I mean
I'm
that
packing.
that's not where I thought you were going with that.
I'm
Because
packing so that I can put my pants that I'm wearing down there in the bag just in case I have to wear the Grinch costume back from the retreat
I'm wearing my
on the
pants
train.
down there. Uh, I can. So you were saying that you might off let you would offer you to keep the Grinch costume just like out of the kindness of their hearts, as opposed to
They don't want it back after I
where
put
my
it
mind
on.
went. Where you like took it off, you gave it to them. They took a sniff and
Hey
were
man,
like, you know
yeah,
what, you can
this is
keep
exactly
this.
what I'm expecting. So so I have to think about the fact that I might be wandering around the street at midnight in Chicago with a backpack and a full-on Grinch costume on,
I mean, 'tis the season.
right? I mean, I think it might work exactly,
That Grinch costume's
but
probably super warm.
it could unfortunately bring me more attention than I want, though. That's the issue.
Just look like you know where you're going, and people will leave you alone.
What I'm worried about is that people might think that I'm the Grinch and be like, "Hey, this guy's here to steal Christmas," and then I'll have to deal with that hassle. Oh, I was going to say though, there's another thing that somebody wrote which boggles my mind, which was, "Hey, I'm planning on going to Chicago for vacation, and I don't have uh, real confidence that they're going to let me bring my gun." And the answer is, of course, they're not going to let you bring your gun. And he's like, "I've heard that if it's disassembled, I can still bring it." And somebody was like, "Well, you have to have a," and they told me that I had to have a license to carry it, but my state doesn't make you have to have that. And it's like, okay, but still, yeah, you're gonna have to. And all these people just wrote back like, "Don't bring your gun, dingus," and stuff like that. Because
Because
truthfully, don't bring your gun.
yeah, but it's a fragile, I'm assuming, white man who's afraid of everything needs his gun to feel big.
Well, and he's going into what he's been told is a
Yeah,
war zone.
yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, speaking of which, great news, Ben. You know who shows up sometimes in the city of Chicago? Just in case I was missing them from bygone days, the Blue Angels, Ben. They do flyovers in the city of Chicago.
They probably
Uh,
haven't though since you've been there.
they
So
have,
they have.
but they haven't in my neighborhood. So that's it. I'm on basically the Ask Chicago Reddit is like a
Yeah,
giant next door act
yeah.
for the city of Chicago. And people are like, were those the Blue Angels? Question mark. And I'm like, oh no, but it's fine.
They found
Unfortunately,
me. I don't know how,
I
but they found me.
I also missed the Sandhill crane migration, of which there was one, which is pretty
Oh,
cool. So the big the big thing though is that I personally um, liked this aspect of the guy's question because he also said that he was going to keep his gun in his truck, and a lot of people wrote to him and said, "You're asking if you should bring your gun. You also shouldn't bring your truck. You're not going to find a place to park it." Uh, my adopted father, George, speaking of trucks, hit a deer with his
like
truck.
recently?
It jumped out in front of him, yeah, and did $11,000 worth of damage to his truck. And
That's
I
de-
said, the
oh
naive
dear.
person that I am, oh, so I guess you're getting a new truck. No, no, his truck was not totaled by that hit because that's how expensive trucks are.
Yeah.
I didn't realize or think of it, but yeah, that makes sense.
Deer impacts are no joke, man. I had a friend who hit one in his car when we were in high school, and this is like I don't remember the year, but it was like a late 70s, early 80s Dodge Comet. So like what people would probably call good old US American steel, you know?
Yeah.
Meaning, unlike cars of today, there's no crumple zone in the front. And
Hey,
so when he hit the deer, it instead of like the car doing as best it could to protect the passenger, it just plowed through this poor deer. And my friend Ben, yeah, he got hurt, right? Because like he came to a pretty immediate stop once that happened. And part of the deer came up and through the windshield.
ugh,
And so yeah,
where'd it throw it? That's a dumb
it
joke.
was
Sorry,
they
everybody.
did they did total the car. He couldn't drive it after that because there was no way. You know,
Yeah,
you're not gonna pay $11,000 to fix a '79 Dodge Comet that's worth $500.
yeah. Um, oh, by the way, I think we talked about this before. There have been some sightings in some U.S. Air Force bases in the UK of these orbs or
The
drones, depending
Orb,
on who you ask.
love them, man.
Uh, One of the other things, there was a video that was actually shot in Seattle, Washington, also of an orb that somebody saw. It's just posted a couple of like maybe even today or yesterday.
Is this the thing that like? Because I saw people post photos, I think both on Reddit and Facebook. So I know somebody who photographed this, but there was like a vapor trail, like a weird
Mm,
shaped vapor trail over the
no, that's
city.
different.
Like
This is
something had like tried to do some skywriting in an alien language over the Ship Canal Bridge.
no, I didn't see that. That's interesting.
Apparently, there was a fireball connected to this as well. I know, I didn't see it,
Huh.
so
This is a little white ball that this guy saw that he
uh,
filmed.
haven't
So
seen it.
anyway,
Well,
The
I mean,
the basic.
the very first sighting, the first recorded sighting of a UFO was around Mount Rainier
Yep. That's
by, was it Teddy Rose? Was it Teddy Roosevelt?
what? No,
Yeah,
what?
it was a future president, I want to say. This I'm gonna look up.
Wow. I know that Jimmy Carter saw a UFO, but that couldn't have been the same thing you're thinking of. I don't I don't recall. I told you about the one that I saw at the during the eclipse, right? Not the last eclipse, but the eclipse prior to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we even talked about it. Wow, I must have UFOs in the brain for sure.
Well, they're big news these days.
Yeah, it's happening again. The news about UFOs. People
Maybe
are,
I'm conflating the Mount Rainier sighting and the Jimmy Carter sighting because I can't find any instance. There's a Kenneth
maybe.
Arnold
Kenneth
UFO
Arnold.
sighting at Mount Rainier in '47.
Kenneth Arnold was one of the first people to say, and he apparently coined the term UFO. And the thing about it being a saucer, people think
Unidentified
it's
flying. Oh my
saucer
God, what
shaped,
is that?
but again, the flip that he described, the skipping like one would skip a stone. That's exactly what
Like
it looked like to
somebody's
me.
throwing flying saucers
Yep.
through our
Flip, flip,
atmosphere.
flip, flip, flip. Exactly. I think it might be time dilation or something to that effect. But yeah, pretty interesting. It's here, then it's here, then it's here. Um, so that's going on. There was another. Oh, oh, Ben, going to guess the news. Hey, Ben.
More been gonna guess the news.
What what is a supposed feature of the Cybertruck that turns out to be maybe not such a good thing? I
Uh,
know. There's so much to choose from. But
are you talking about the stainless steel aspect of the Cybertruck, which is actually fooling raccoons into thinking it's a dumpster, and some Cybertruck owners are reporting that raccoons are trying to break in and damaging the skin of their Cybertrucks.
wow, no, but that's awesome to hear. No, the thing that I was thinking about was there's a video of some firefighters trying to get into a Cybertruck, and they talk about how hard it is to break in through the windows,
The bulletproof windows.
which is great if you want to keep people from breaking in your windows. Not so great if you're trapped in your Cybertruck and emergency workers are trying to get to you.
Is this related to that incident that happened earlier this week, where there was
Oh,
a
maybe.
crash and there was a Cybertruck crash? I think it was in Northern California, a single car crash. And I don't know the cause, but apparently, like three people died and one person was seriously injured.
Wow. That might be. I don't know exactly. I just heard reports that the bulletproof. I didn't know that somebody was actually affected by it. I just heard reports that it was determined that the bulletproof windows were not good for emergency workers to get to someone. So maybe
It's
a real world situation
going
happened.
to be another recall where they have to recall all the Cybertrucks and replace the bulletproof windows with the ones that conform to emergency needs.
Or bulletproof windows, but you're able to kick them out real easy. Uh,
Bulletproof,
which
but
would be
not
weird,
bootproof.
but
But bootproof.
yeah. I still do like the Superman getting shot. You remember that? Superman gets shot with the gun
Guy
and
runs out of
stands there,
bullets and
takes the bullet,
throws.
and Superman ducks.
Yep.
Oh, speaking about which, Superman coming up pretty soon. The new
Oh, is this
Superman.
the James Gunn Superman?
Yep, James Gunn Superman coming soon to a theater near us. How
I
soon
can't remember
though?
the
Don't
last time
know.
I went to see a movie. Oh, I do remember the last time I went to a movie theater. I went to go see
Wicked.
Furiosa, a Mad
Oh
Max
no.
saga
Oh,
at
I
the
saw
SIF
Furiosa
downtown.
at home,
You can watch it at
and
home now. It's
enjoyed
on
it.
the. I wanted to see it on the big screen first.
Yeah. I don't know if I can watch it anymore though. Again, Max, I don't have it anymore. Uh, there's something that I
That's
can't
mad.
watch now because I don't have Max. I can't think of what it is. It's Trap. The M. Night Shyamalan movie Trap, where a serial killer is trapped in a concert with his daughter and cops who are trying to catch him.
There's a new
Oh,
movie
and
coming out called Carry On, which is a supposed thriller, and it's about a guy who's trying to like get something past a TSA agent. The concept sounds really thin, but apparently it's like a big old action movie starring Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman?
Yeah, Arrested Development's Jason Bateman.
Huh.
I think somebody
I
misspelled Statham on the casting sheet and they just
Yeah,
went
well
with
this
it.
is exactly yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Um well, gosh, now I'm interested to see I am interested to see that. That's really
Jason's
great.
not the action guy. He's the villain in the film. Well, that's what the trailers want you to
Oh,
believe, right?
gotcha. Okay, well, okay, I might take a now that I know that Jason Bateman isn't doing the action part, I don't know if I'm as interested.
I'm
Oh,
sure he's got a single fight scene.
I finished Chinatown,
Hey, so did I.
uh,
I
which I
finished it a
liked.
couple days ago.
Uh,
Yeah.
it
Uh,
took a little bit of I'm not saying that they took a lot from location, but I felt like there was. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Did you you
Ben
haven't read the book,
Ben
have
is
you?
no, I haven't. No, Ben has had to listen to me over 15 years because I stopped after a while. That's we've known each other for longer, but for like about 15 years of me saying, I think so and so saw our thing this, and that's why they did that. I'm finally over it. Um,
Yeah.
because as you get older, you really do realize that the parallel thinking idea is a thing. Number one, but then number two, there's a difference between having an idea to do something and then actually making that thing. I think that's one of the biggest.
I was talking to somebody at Annex recently, and they brought up they brought up American Doctor Who, and I'm like, "Oh, are you talking about the GudeLaurance American Doctor Who from like 12 years ago?" And they're like, "No, we're talking about the actual like reboots that the Americans tried to do." And I'm like, "I didn't even know that was a thing."
Yeah, yeah, and that was actually I think that actually predates ours. That's like um
Perhaps
yeah, but that was different. The Doctor wasn't an American. Um, it had Eric Roberts as the Master. Remember that?
that's why we were talking about it. Somebody was trying to remember um Julia Roberts' brother's name, and she's
Yeah.
like and she was like it's a Roberts, it's a famous what's his first name, and I'm like, are you talking about Chris Sarandon, another less
No.
famous sibling of a famous sister?
Yeah, Eric Roberts though.
Can't remember who. Catherine was probably there. So, Catherine, email the show at Ben's email at yahoo.com at gmail.com and remind me what we were talking about.
So
Oh,
that is one of oh
speaking of Catherine, we have some, it's not feedback, but we have actually a comment on one of the
oh
episodes that
okay.
she texted me.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
says, and this is the most recent one that had been posted. So episode 456, I think.
Okay.
Meta moment in the GudeLaurance podcast. As you mentioned the date for your first Annex audition, Paul recounts that moment in time when he approached Annex and saw posters for that show that you were cast in. Then you say that he froze on the line and you missed what he said. Without knowing the details, I imagine that you and Paul met after that moment in time and, in fact, just missed each other.
Yeah. I
Well,
would.
I said we didn't meet until later, probably not until after my second show. And she's like, I knew it. It was another missed connection as you two reminisced about the missed connection.
What was the second show?
I did, well, after Forlorn, I ran lights for Bartleby, but I don't really count that as doing a show, even though technically I did the show.
Yeah.
But it was the Ebenezer cycle. I
Yeah.
don't think I
Okay.
knew you
So
during the Ebenezer cycle.
I feel as though you and I met. You and I met at a company meeting because you used to. I think you were running a house at the
Yeah.
time, and they were like, "Hey, Paul's looking for something to do," and so that's our first interaction was me maybe volunteering to work house, um, or not volunteering to work house, but them trying to get me to work house with you and it not working out
I don't actually
because that
remember that interaction specifically. I don't. I only I remember meeting you at the ATF workouts,
yeah. So
or knowing who you were at that point.
so yeah, that's when we talk. I remember there was one point in time where you were sitting like this, and I thought
For
that you were upset or sad, and so I
those
walked
listening at
over
home,
to
Paul put his
ask you what
hands
it was
over
like.
his ears.
Um, and what you were actually doing is you were talking on your cell phone,
Oh,
but
trying to
I
keep
I
out the
still
rest of the noise.
yeah, I still hadn't had a cell phone at that point, so I wasn't sure. I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
Um, and I remember the first time there's a guy that I used to work with named Barry Kaplan. Barry had one of the first iPhones, and I
yeah.
remember him walking in to the office uh, where I was working at the front desk, and him not looking up and just typing on his phone while walking. And I was like, that's the craziest thing that I've ever seen in my life. He hasn't, because he hasn't hit anything, but he isn't looking where he's going.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of interesting.
First person I knew who had a cell phone was Chris Haddad.
Mm,
But
I believe
I
it.
was McCandless and I were at a conference, a podcasting conference. Back then it was called New Media. And we knew people who knew Felicia Day. Do you know who Felicia Day is?
Yes, I do.
So we're all out at dinner, like me, McCandless, Felicia Day, Kimmy B, and her husband Greg, who was actually in an episode of Interior Chinatown, by the way. Um,
Oh, who was he in that, if you don't mind me asking?
there's, I think it's episode 2 or 3 where Willis and Lana they need to get into the police station. They're being chased, and he's
Uh-huh.
like a cop who's outside at the barricades, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where are you going?" And she like shows him an ID, and then he like looks at it, and then he lets them through. That's basically it.
Gotcha.
I had to back
Kim
up and
Evie,
like try to find him.
Kim Evie, is that Tiny Chicken Machine Show?
It is, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, okay, okay.
So we're all out at dinner, and Felicia Day, the only one at the table who had an iPhone and never looked up from it. And like we get there, I actually go to shake her hand, and she doesn't even take her phone out of her hand, so like we're shaking
Wow.
hands with her phone, and I'm like, that's kind of rude. And then, like, I get an iPhone, whatever, 6 months later, recalling that moment and being like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it.
But I don't think I've ever I've never shaken hands with someone with my iPhone, if that makes sense. Like, I will have my phone in my pocket if I'm going to shake
Yeah.
your hand.
I haven't
Felicia Day might be left-handed. I wonder if she's left-handed.
holding the phone in her right hand and using her left hand to scroll.
No, holding her phone with her right hand, using her thumb to scroll, but then not like
Yeah.
because I use my phone in my offhand, which is my left hand. We've talked about this
That's
before.
funny.
I was supposed to be left-handed. I got switched. Do you use it on your regular hand?
No, I hadn't thought about that, but I normally hold my phone with my right hand and I'm left-handed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Haha. I feel silly. Um, I said to someone, "Yeah, Ben. I don't know if he's left-handed or not, but he plays guitar left-handed. I'm pretty sure." So that's
I
so yeah.
do.
But you use your phone in your right hand. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So when you and Felicia Day went to shake hands, maybe you're both shaking with your off hands because that's how the rest of society does it. Who
Whatever the
knows?
reason, I thought it odd. Maybe I like surprise her by going in for the handshake. I will admit the kind of fanboying out. I was super excited to meet her.
Yeah. Oh, we talked a little bit about when Jennifer met Paul Giamatti as
Oh
well.
yeah,
Yeah, it
where did she
was
meet Paul?
at Conworks.
Oh,
They were doing a costume parade for something, and she was in a wedding dress with blood splatter on it.
okay.
And Paul Giamatti was there. She was like, "Oh, hi, Paul," and talking to him. And then she was like, "Oh, you don't know me," and he's like, "I don't." And then they had like a brief interaction. They both
Why
knew.
was? Does she know why Paul was there?
I don't remember
Hmm.
that part of the story. He was, but it was. She mentioned that she was doing stuff with Annex, and he was like, "Oh, are they still around?"
Yeah,
And she was like, "Yeah,
so Paul Giamatti came to record a live version of his podcast called Chidwag at Town Hall Seattle. Maybe I told you this story
maybe not."
already.
How long ago was it?
This was a few months ago. It's like in the summertime.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think I've heard it.
And so uh the show, they were talking about Northwest Cryptids, which was kind of fun. And thinking of Chris Haddad, actually Chris and his wife Angie were there. It was the only people I knew. Um, but I bought the expensive ticket that gave me, I could sit in like the first three rows, and I
Yeah,
got to meet him afterwards and have him and
very cool.
get like a signed poster of the show and take a photo. I didn't take a photo, but I did go up and I gave him a piece of marketing for the upcoming show at Annex, and I like told him that I've been a company member for 25 years, and we're still using the logo that Ware Harmon designed, the Fighting A logo inside the box.
Yeah,
And I had to I impressed upon him that yes, the theater company is still around, still doing stuff, has a home on Capitol Hill, because I have read in like interviews with him where he like gave the impression he didn't think the company was around anymore because we moved
yeah,
out of Fourth Avenue. So yeah, I told him, I'm
very
like,
good.
I know you're probably not gonna be in town, but this show is opening on Friday. We'd love to, have you come see it. And
Nice.
Reader, he did not come.
Uh, aha. Um, but the show did open.
The show did open,
How
and
was it?
it was good.
Good,
This was
good.
a show called Gunked, about a Nickelodeon type kids show in the 90s. And
Nice.
they actually had to, during the development of the show, had to do a number of rewrites because this documentary called Quiet on
Yes.
Set came
Uh-huh.
out like right as they were about ready to build
I
the
was gonna
set.
say the timing seemed
The timing
it,
was a
it
little sus.
it's not really Dante's Peak and what was the other one?
In d- Dante speaking, it's a volcano one, right?
mhm. And there was another volcano one that
Yeah.
happened right at the same time.
There are also two asteroid movies that came out at the same time: Deep
Yeah,
Impact and Armageddon.
exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Wasn't it just called Volcano?
Might have been just called Volcano. It's possible.
Where like LA explodes?
I think so. I think Dante's Peak was Pierce Brosnan and the volcano was Tommy Lee Jones, but I'm not positive.
I gotta look this up. Yeah, just called Volcano.
Hey, and is it Tommy Lee Jones?
Um, yes, it is Tommy Lee Jones. I have seen neither movie, but yeah, Pierce Brosnan and Tommy Lee.
Jones.
Not the Tommy Lee
That was
from
it.
Motley Crue.
Yeah, I remember at one point in time, it was either on a TV show or it was an old coworker of mine, way, 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 way back when, who said something about I hear that Tommy Lee Jones has a very large penis, and somebody had then informed them that they were actually thinking of Tommy Lee from the Tommy Lee and Pam.
Right,
Was
Pamela
it
Anderson.
Pam? Pamela
Pamela
Anderson
Anderson.
sex tape thing. Hey, we're not seeing many of
So I've
those
not seen
anymore.
sex tapes, like leaked
Sex
sex
tapes.
tapes.
Yeah, when was the last time you ever heard of a leaked sex tape?
Uh, that was unintentionally leaked
Well,
by a disturbed fan or jilted partner.
because I know that there were big phone hacks that happened.
Yeah,
I guess that was the
there was
latest thing of that kind
there
of.
was one. I can't remember the name of this actor. Um, Jennifer something.
Love Hewitt.
Where no. Anyway, she was like
I
early
and I just threw that
twenties,
out there. I don't know anything about
early twenties
anything.
actor. Been in. She was in. I think she was in the Hunger Games. You seen the Hunger
Oh,
Games?
wait, was
Anyway,
she like the one of the main people in the Hunger
yeah.
Games?
She's like the main person.
I know who you're talking about. She was in
There was, I think, the movie
the
called Maze that she was in as well.
there was a movie that she was in with who's the guy who plays Rocket Raccoon? Um
Uh,
uh uh you know who I'm talking about. That guy.
yeah.
It's
All
got
right.
a name like The Bright Side or something like that, but that's not what the name of it is.
Anyway,
Um
it's
something playbook, the the
Silver
Sunshine
Linings Playbook.
Silver Linings Playbook. She was in that.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer
I
Lawrence. Oh,
couldn't
oh,
come up
Ben.
with her last name.
Interesting.
It's the same as mine.
Interesting.
There was a
But it's
thing
not the same as
where
yours.
it was so Jennifer Lawrence and I think a couple other like Hollywood stars had their iCloud hacked and a bunch of like nude photos were leaked. And the internet called it the Great Fappening.
Yes, that's actually what I was thinking of
Yeah.
when I was like, oh, well, I guess that thing. It sort of counts, but it also doesn't because it this was a situation where um there was a lot of people and um it wasn't a targeted thing, right? I feel like the most of the leaked situations, it turned into like it actually started some careers in like reality television.
Like Paris
Actually, in
Hilton.
reality television, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian,
Yeah,
things like that. Like it was a business model almost. Your sex tape gets leaked, and then you get a show,
it's
sort of.
pretty bonkers. Um,
It is a little weird, but
I
we haven't seen it happen
but
recently. I don't
like
think.
with the prevalence and easily accessible, pornography that you can find anywhere on the internet, is a leaked sex tape really like that big of a news push these days?
I think it would be, but simply because, and this goes, I hate to say it, we're backing into AI again a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
it's the celebrity angle of it. Like I can see, like the consumer says, I can see anything that I want, but I can't see anything I want with this particular person
my ex-girlfriend.
or
There's
whatever,
a
right?
yeah, there Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually introduced a bill. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's gone anywhere to crack down on deep fakes and pornography.
Yep. And it's one of those weird things where it might actually be a bipartisan issue because there's all this, and it's basically it seems like it's from conservative governors of banning Pornhub
Yeah,
from their states.
that's part of the Project 2025 agenda.
So in a way, I think that the two groups might find some common ground in that case.
I mean, you're gonna get some senator who's like, I think that people should be free to input any to face over an adult actress's movie.
Yeah, I mean the thing here's, and this goes with all of the AI stuff, right? Um, I think we've passed the point where it can be a free for all. Like it could have been open and you could make anything, all the safeguards are off. You can do whatever you want to. I think we've gotten to the point where most people don't agree. It is interesting to me the amount of traction that shame has gotten. Not shame as far as you know, porn stuff, but shame as far as like if you are using AI to to generate images, it is considered bad form to use those images in a professional work. Like
Yes.
it's one of those things where it's like, and and here's the thing, you're old enough to remember this. Clip art
Yeah.
had the same thing, right? And people may not remember it, but I remember it. Same thing with honestly, um public domain stuff. Using public domain stuff or not just clip art, but what's the Shutterstock uh stock photos
Yeah.
or whatever. Same sort of thing. Like you could use it, but you had to like kind of fix it up a little bit, or it just came off as being cheesy.
I mean, there was a time
Same
when
thing.
I could identify pieces of music that came with the Apple editing software Soundtrack Pro in like legitimate television commercials
Yeah.
that obviously had a big budget.
And there's a thing now with the music, the AI generated music, where you can get a copyright claim uh, if you and someone else generate very similar music, or if one of those companies that like has free music for you to download, if they use AI to generate it, it
Yeah.
gets into a weird situation because no one technically owns that music. But if you put your thing over it, if you have your copy being read over it or whatever, that becomes yours because you own the non um, the non AI generated stuff, if that makes sense. That's I think that's the way that the human changes to AI content make it your thing, make it you're able to copyright it then. Uh,
I don't know
back
what
when I worked,
what the situation is as far as text goes, though, in terms of academia, because I know that they're like schools are trying to crack down on kids just using Chat GPT to write their papers. But what if you do what I've heard some kids do, which is use Chat GPT to get started and then edit what it spit out?
right, exactly, or and it's I bet you it's going to be a percentage eventually. Here's what you could do, for example, get ChatGPT to write your outline and then
Yeah,
write your thing. Like, would that be acceptable? Some people would say no. I think
not
it is
for me to
possible.
say.
Yeah. Well, if you were going to say, Ben, what would you say would be? I think maybe having it write your outline would work. Definitely not. You're definitely not able to use it as a source. I would say that I would not allow that, but I would allow someone to use like Perplexity. I think ChatGPT does this now too. Um, to find sources,
It
and
provides
then
the
if
source.
if the source is legitimate, then write your paper using that source. Right? You don't take what ChatGPT wrote, but you could write your own thing based on that source if you read the source. That's the thing is that all this stuff is, pardon the pun, kind of academic at this point because what are people going to end up doing, right? In the end, they're going to use the chat GPT to write something, and then someone else, the reader, is going to use chat GPT to do the summary of what the other chat GPT wrote. No one's going to be reading anything. It's
The
just going to be,
circle of life.
yeah, AI talking to AI, Ben. Oh, speaking about which,
I hope they
I
get
guess the
along.
last thing we have about 5 minutes. Let's talk about the notebook uh, thing that Google does now. Are you familiar with this?
I am
The
not.
so there's a thing called notebooks. I don't remember what it's notebooks and then some letters after it maybe. It's an AI service that Google provides where you can give it a piece of text. It will read it, and then it'll give you a summary of that text. You can ask it questions about it, etc. And one of the aspects of it is that you can have it put together a podcast with two hosts talking about the material. Um,
So
I think
instead
it
of
might
reading a book, your Google creates a podcast that you can listen to. Where
of two
two
people talking about the book.
generated people talking about the book.
I think it's called Notebooks
Jesus.
AI. I think that's what it's called. And I did this with a couple of my own writings just to hear
Yeah.
people talk about it, and it's really crazy because they do come up with some insights uh, for the things he wrote. But someone, not me, just had it read a document that was just the words poo poo pee pee over and over and over again. You can find it on YouTube, and it is really interesting because it talks about it legitimately. It's like, so what do we think this is? Is it a prank? Is it a commentary on the meaninglessness of language? What it, like they're discussing
Yeah.
it legitimately. It's pretty interesting. And someone else said that you know other people have created like Discord type things where everyone on the social media platform except for you as an AI, but they're all talking to you. And someone talked about doing it for stand up, where you have an audience that is reacting to what you're saying and laughing and all that. And it feels very lonely at the end. That
Yeah,
you know, and maybe it will would work for like a yeah, I'm sitting here talking to you on my iPad, uh, right? What would the difference be between me talking to you on my iPad? You and I are very good friends, and we've known each other for a really long time. And some like 13-year-old kid talking to a cartoon character on his iPad, making a podcast that he then has a bunch of other cartoon characters listen to with a listenership bigger than ours, right? Would
yeah,
the
probably.
kid would the kid get the same sort of, you know, like part of the reason why this is fun for me is because you and I know each other, and we're having a good conversation like we normally do.
Right.
I guess you could raise a child that comes to think of digital consciousnesses as their friend,
Friends. Yeah.
and have a positive outlook on that. It's just weird,
That's
but maybe
a
it's the
way to
future.
that's a start um on a long trend to be able to manipulate people.
Yeah,
You find a 13-year-old kid who's befriended some sort of AI bot, and over the course of the years, maybe you tell this AI bot to,
start
nudge
throwing in
this kid in a
ideas.
certain way,
Well,
or sponsored by Pepsi.
there's a Black Mirror episode that's very similar to that, where there's a mascot, and the mascot becomes popular, and the voice behind the mascot doesn't want to do it anymore. So
Yeah,
somebody else, comes in, and they're able to speak with that mascot's voice. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. It was
it
the
is
mascot was also like running for office or
blue.
something, right?
Yeah, that is right. Yep. And who's that guy? He was on Snatch and a couple of other things. Was he in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? Maybe. The sort of red-haired guy.
The voice of the mascot,
He was the second voice of the mascot.
the
He wasn't the
second voice
first
of the
guy.
mascot.
Yeah. Um, he was in, like I said, in Snatch. He was at the gypsy camp.
Oh yeah, Jason
Oh,
Jason Fleming.
and sorry to the folks where I said the gypsy camp. I do apologize.
That's what they
I
call it in
believe
the
it was,
in the
yeah, still not great, still not right.
no
Travelers, etc. But
the
yeah, Jason
Waldo
Fleming.
moment. That was the so I thought it was Jason. Yeah, Jason Fleming is in that episode.
Yeah, he's the guy who does the second voice, or does the voice the second time. He's like a producer, whatever. He
Well,
takes over.
that that episode actually has a lot of people in it. Tobias Menzies, he's in it.
Who's that?
He's been in some Game of Thrones, but I really liked him in the TV show The Terror. Have you seen The Terror?
Oh yeah, I've seen the Terror.
Yeah,
Who's he in that?
he plays James Fitzjames. He's
Remind me who
the
James Fitzjames is. Is he the Doctor, or is he a
no,
different guy?
he was the like the
Spoilers for the
admiral,
Terror,
the
maybe.
captain who liked to like relive stories of his past glory.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
One of the last ones to die. James Lance is in that episode. He is in Ted Lasso. He plays the journalist in Ted Lasso.
Oh, right.
Um, yeah, and Jason Fleming.
Here's
I
something
started
that's
watching
really.
last night. I started watching A Man on the Inside. Have you heard of this one?
Oh yeah, Ted Danson going into a nursing home.
Undercover.
I wonder if we're ever going to get to go into nursing homes, Ben. Will
You
they
know
still
what?
be around?
You know what's funny about that? I was watching that episode, and I'm like, this is less a nursing home and more like a country club
Yeah.
because, like this last road trip, I went to my grandmother's nursing home, and it is not like what's depicted on TV. My grandmother's assisted living facility is basically a hospital with
Ah,
people who are not active whatsoever. So this
interesting.
senior living facility in the TV show, I don't think is supposed to represent what the darker side of nursing homes is supposed to be
Yeah,
like. And of course it wouldn't. It's a lighthearted TV show on Netflix created by the guy who did Parks and Rec.
exactly. Hey, and speaking of Parks and Rec, it's the end of the podcast, Ben.
Hey, look at
Uh,
that. We've reached it.
so I will talk to you again next week for the people, but not for another 2 weeks for you and I.
Right, because you're going it's next week is the thing that you're going to. That's why we had to do a two for today, right? You're
That's
taking
right.
the train. You're taking the train to that?
Mhm.
The retreat?
And I'm gonna get the big thing is I'm not gonna be back until that Friday
Yeah.
because
All
the
right.
the train is gonna drop me off Thursday evening, but by the time that I get home, it's gonna be Friday morning
Right.
because I'm gonna be crossing that timeline. So all right,
So, but you're good the week after?
yeah, yeah, it'll be
Cool.
we will be meeting to do the podcast again on the 12th.
Perfect. There's
Wait, the
a
12th?
Sugar Plum Gary
Yes.
opens the next day. Do you remember Sugar Plum
Ah,
Gary?
I do
Emmett's
remember it.
character. We're doing it at Annex.
Nice. And oh, I will also be doing my therapy the right before. So it might take me a second to switch over. We'll see
Yeah.
how it all works out.
All right.
But yeah, from
Well,
one Zoom call to another. And
in that
until then,
case,
Ben,
Paul, I bid you a very good keep it wrong.
keep it wrong, and I'll talk to you more